So how come? Oh, because it's further back, bro.
Don't say anything stupid or things we'll regret. Act like it's...
We should promote the art of the month.
Like, I hate the whole, like, wooden stuff. I think it's...
My Sam was about to do something weird. Sensors are going off.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Here we go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Liberator podcast. I'm Sam Riley here with James Silverman and Russell Hunter. And we got a good topic for you this time, but before we get to that, Russell's got a really nice shirt on. You might notice his biceps are bulging. He was doing 100 push-ups, or what was it?
Yeah, no, for every point that the Sooners put up against the Catamounts, I was going to do a push-up. So it's like 7 and then 14 all the way up to 76. So what I'm about to do right now is very painful, but yeah.
Don't be too impressed here.
I'm not lifting I'm using my legs. But yeah, the Never Wound a Snake, Kill It shirt.
There it
is now out and available on the Free the State store. Store.freethestates.
It's a beautiful shirt.
It is really. I told Russell it's my favorite shirt he's ever made. I'm not just saying that to sell shirts. It legit is insanely cool.
It's very comfortable.
Well, I'm glad that it's a good print and it's a comfortable shirt and it's a good quote.
Mm-hmm. So, I just like grays already too, and I love the color just pops.
Yeah, we do a lot of grays. We do a lot of blacks, a lot of blues. We'll try to add some color here eventually. Yeah. But we only ordered 200 of this shirt.
Yep.
And I think about half of them are gone. So if you want one, go get one.
And if you're listening to this on the audio apps, go to YouTube or Facebook so you can actually see the shirt that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So that's true. Or just go to the store and look at the shirt and other things.
Or do that.
So we hope to update the store.
Or freethestate/store.
Store.freethestates.org.
Store.freethestates.org.
Yep, it's right here. Boom.
Yep. There it is. I put it in. Back to that interesting topic. We were talking about nullification becoming cool again, sort of, or rather more of the hypocrisy that we're dealing with the conservative right.
It's always been cool to pretend nullification.
Yeah, we're gonna do something. It's always like you have to say that you're gonna do something big and powerful and strong, and then you don't do anything.
Yeah, that's a defining characteristic of the Republican Party in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. Talking big about states' rights, state sovereignty, nullification, but when it comes to the one thing that you definitely should nullify for, the lives of innocent little image bearers, you don't. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to get into that today.
Yeah.
And we get to get into it because of Mr. Joe Biden.
Big Bag Biden.
The president of the United States saying stuff about nullification and on his part, and then also saying stuff about vaccine mandates, and then governors of different states talking big about nullification.
And what he did say is ridiculous and evil. That's like, just to be clear, like at the outset, we think that what Biden is doing is terrible, but it is ridiculous that this is the kind of thing that will get governors fired up about nullification. Yep. That's kind of crazy to me.
So let's go into it. What did Biden say?
Biden, James, you want to tell us what he said?
Sure. So he had about a half-hour press conference, basically talking about his new plan to use OSHA, which is a department within the Department of Labor, which is going to mandate the vaccine for all employees of companies with 100 or more employees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so he said things in the press conference. I mean, this is the stuff that the right will caricature the left of, but then Biden just embraces it. So, the way he speaks is so dictatorial. It's crazy.
Many of us are frustrated with the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated. This is not about freedom or personal choice. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us.
This is not about freedom or personal choice. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. It's so dictatorial, just like the way he's talking.
Yeah.
I just had to get that going.
Yeah, but you can definitely see it like in the beginning opening stuff of like a movie, like a post-apocalyptic movie, like that shows you how like we got to the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Is like some president saying something like this. It just seems so caricature and no, he didn't really say it that way.
Right.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. And Republican governors were outraged.
Of course. Yes.
Mad.
Big mad.
Yeah, big mad. So
mad bigly.
So, all right, let's get into some of these quotes from Republican governors here. So we've got Henry McMaster, governor of South Carolina. He says on Twitter, "The American dream has turned into a nightmare under President Biden and the radical Democrats. They have declared war against capitalism, thumbed their noses at the Constitution, and empowered our enemies abroad. Rest assured, we will fight them to the gates of hell to protect the liberty and livelihood of every South Carolinian."
Yeah. He was channeling like Winston Churchill. Whenever he's like, we will fight them to the gates of hell and we will fight them to the grocery store and we will like just feeling all big and all powerful.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yeah, bold words require bold actions. And if this guy actually meant what he said, then he'd pass the abolition bill. And there wouldn't be any more murder of preborn babies in our country anymore. But the magnitude, the degree of evil away that this is, the murder of preborn humans versus forcing vaccinations. That's evil, right? Forcing vaccinations is evil. But the mass murder of innocent human beings, that's the first thing that you got to get right if you're going to nullify something.
Yeah.
And the fact that it comes out with this, it just shows how ageist we are and how
because
absolutely apathetic we are.
Because Henry McMaster's would go on record saying he's pro-life, that I'm sure you can find him somewhere telling a Sunday school class or whatever, abortion is murder. And that he would probably also say that the role of government is to protect people from murder. And so he's on record for all these things that he believes, but he will not fight to the gates of hell for those.
Yeah. And what's crazy is not just McMaster, but I've never seen anything like this from any governor in the last 48 years, or at least I've only been alive for 26 of those 48, but I've never seen or heard of anything like this ever on behalf of preborn children.
Yeah.
Ever from any governor.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in the last 250 years, but I wasn't born 250 years ago.
Yeah, you haven't seen it in the last 13 years of your life. But yeah, no, I mean, and of course it's across the board. You got Missouri Governor Mike Parsons.
Yep.
I quote, "I don't plan on letting that happen in Missouri." And he also references the possibility of calling a special session to fight Biden's mandate. So these guys, they're basically like, Biden says, we're going to do this. My patience is wearing thin. And then governors, I think, to prove, their states' rights rhetoric, so on and so forth. Because in a certain sense, we say they're willing to stand up to fight government mandates about vaccines. But actually, I don't really know if they're going to. There's another angle of saying, look, they won't do it for the preborn. They're probably not going to do it for vaccines. We're also saying they're willing to talk about doing it for vaccines.
Yeah.
Will they do it? So it's right now. It is a bunch of posturing, possibly, whether or not they actually go through with it. Because I don't plan on letting that happen in Missouri. It's a little bit weaker than I will fight you to the gates of hell.
Yeah.
But it is definitely another governor on record saying.
Right. Yeah, it is weaker, but I wouldn't doubt it if they did defy it. And that's a sad thing. It's like with something like vaccines being forced, they would nullify. Like something like marijuana, they'd nullify. They nullify on all kinds of things.
Yeah.
They just aren't willing to nullify when it comes to the more important things, like our fundamental right to life.
And it's weaker than McMaster's fight to the gates of hell thing, but it is stronger than like, we'll see you in court or something. Like the fact, like, I don't plan on letting that happen. It is kind of like leaving the door open to not just like fighting it in court, but actually like, no, I'm not going, it's not going to happen no matter what.
He's flexing his muscle. He's flexing and he's saying like, listen, state sovereignty, bro. I'm not going to let that happen in Missouri. Like within my jurisdiction, I'm not going to let that happen. And again, that kind of sentiment we don't see for the preborn, we see it for the born.
Yeah.
pointing out the same thing there with the ageism.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, on Biden's mandate said, "Here in Alabama, we don't put up with that nonsense." It's good. They don't put up with that nonsense, yeah. But they put up with the nonsense of allowing babies to be murdered.
Yeah, it's like all these need to be you need to read them in the context. Here in Alabama, we don't put up with that government mandated vaccines, but if the government tells us we're not allowed to protect our babies, gosh darn it, what can we do?
The Supreme Court said so.
Yep.
And
That's how all this stuff should be read.
We're going to get to it later in the episode, but there's actually another quote from Ivy that we're going to get to on abortion. It's basic. I mean, that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Pretty much exactly that. And so they talk very, very differently. But anyway, let's keep going through the governor's statements on Biden vaccine mandates here. So we got Ron DeSantis from Florida, the probable frontrunner for Republican presidential nominee 2024. He says, "We are not going to let people be fired because of a vaccine mandate." Now, again, that is stronger than just like, we'll see you in court. That's like, it's not going to happen. Now, whether he'll actually do it, like you said, it's posturing, very, very likely, but they're talking like they're actually going to say, no, here in our state, we're not doing it.
Yeah, and it's good. So, we are going to stand up for the rights of people in our states. Because that's what good government does. So, like, we applaud these, don't get it wrong, we applaud these quotes. Yeah. We just think that it's silly if you're not willing to do it for the preborn.
Yeah.
So over to North Dakota, Doug Burgum says, quote, "The White House needs to be reminded that the states created the federal government, not the other way around. And we will always vigorously defend states' rights." Like, oh, dude gets it. Like that's it. Yeah. That's half of our material. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Too bad he can't apply that. Again, also pro-life, Republican, conservative, admired, appreciated by the right to life community.
Yep.
Yeah. It's being a modern day normie Republican is just the art of making sure you can creatively make sure your words never match your actions and make sure people know it.
It's the defining characteristic of a Republican today.
Yeah.
I'm a Republican, but yeah.
And then Arizona Governor Doug Ducey said, "Yesterday, Americans watched an angry and desperate President Biden attempt to change the subject following his irresponsible and dangerous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Rather than fielding questions about that, he decided to instead wage a domestic war, a war on our Constitution. President Biden took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and now he's looking to shred it." Again, no intention of action there, really, but it's strong,
right.
It's not.
And when have we ever seen a governor say something like, "The Supreme Court has opened up a literal war on preborn children and have shredded the Constitution"?
Yeah, to do it. Yeah, that
never.
That there's a war going on, and in this state, we're going to stand up for the right side.
Yeah,
nothing like that.
They all keep up this farce that the Supreme Court is just this respectable, legitimate constitution or group of people, and they act like you can't criticize them at all. But people are willing to criticize presidents all the time. I don't see the big difference between criticizing a different branch of government, but they're not willing to do that. They're not willing to make people see that it is just it's a sham.
But this is all political. Like if you think about it, like what if it were flipped around? What if Donald Trump had won the election and Donald Trump, who was very proud of the vaccine, say Donald Trump was like getting a lot of pressure and he wanted to mandate vaccines? Would we be seeing the same thing? So there is this level of, well, we've got to be anti the current administration that I think is there. Yeah. But so if we acknowledge that and just put it to the side and just think the best of all of these guys, they are saying exactly what we'd want them to say about the way government works, what they should do to stand up, that we've made an oath to the Constitution, that the federal government is shredding the Constitution. And when they do that in our system of government, these lower magistrates of these states ought to stand up.
And fight to the gates
these
of
are
hell.
good.
Yep.
And then so for our final one, Kevin Stitt, our own governor.
Yep. He says, "As long as I am governor, there will be no government vaccine mandates in Oklahoma." Right? Again, he's not explicitly coming out and defending nullification. He's not coming out and defending the idea of it, but he's implying it.
Yeah,
it won't happen on my watch is implying nullification.
It is. I mean, it is straight up.
Yeah.
I think that in some instances he will do it. Like there will be some governor somewhere who do practice nullification.
Yep.
The problem is how sad is it that Kevin Stitt, professing Christian, anti-abortion, pro-lifer guy, can't say, as long as I am governor, there will be no government-sanctioned child sacrifice in this state.
Yep.
How come he can't say that? And then how come, the Republican people aren't demanding that he says that? Because I think that one of the reasons these guys are saying it is because they think that their voters want to hear it. Mm-hmm. So a lot that's messed up and a lot that's hypocritical is being exposed from this mandate of the vaccine.
Right. And so let's get into, so we've established what they're saying about the vaccine mandates, and we've established the types of things that they don't say about abortion. Let's get to what they do say about abortion. So some of these exact same governors. So Kevin Stitt, who said there will be no government vaccine mandate in Oklahoma, he says, as he signs pro-life bills that were passed here this past session, he says, we'll let the courts work out if any of those get overturned, but I was proud to do it. Mm-hmm. So basically,
the pro-life laws that he passed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know these aren't going to do anything, and we'll see what the courts do, and whatever they do,
Yeah, because it's in depth, and it's a reference to probably the medical licensing one to take away licenses of abortion doctors, and some reporter at the Tulsa World or whatever was kind of like, do you think this is going to hold up in court? And as a pro-life Republican who passes and signs pro-life legislation, he knows that that's not even the plan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so he just says, by the way, let me just rubber stamp this with I don't believe that we can stand up to the courts.
Yeah, it's incredibly foolish that, I mean, if this was the Biden administration saying that they're going to, well, again, force vaccines, do whatever they're going to do, he wouldn't just be like, well, we'll see if the Biden administration lets it happen or not. He would say, no, we're not going to do this. Yeah. The fact that he is so lacking in urgency on this just shows your priorities are really out of whack. Like the degree to which you should act on these two different things it couldn't be farther apart. You should stop genocide now. And if a vaccine mandate comes, yes, you should stop that too. But the priority is so much higher.
Yeah, there should be consistency. There's priorities higher, but there should just be consistency. Anything that the federal government does that is unjust, unconstitutional, ought to be checked. Yeah. That's the balance of powers checking system that we have. Yeah. And so again, we don't want Kevin Stitt to not stand up for vaccines, but stand up against
vaccine mandates,
government mandates on vaccines. But when he does, it's just so blasted hypocritical. Yeah. It needs to be exposed.
One of my favorite quotes just from being in this battle, or one of my favorite kind of infamous quotes, because the ones I go to just expose how just idolatrous that the Republicans treat the Supreme Court when it comes to abortion, is from Kay Ivey. Now, Kay Ivey, as Sam read earlier, said, we don't put up with that vaccine mandate nonsense. That's what she says about when Biden acts on vaccines and does federal overreach in that way. But when Alabama in 2019 passed a Life at Conception Act, now it wasn't abolition. It obviously didn't have Ignore Roe, and it didn't have equal protection, so the mother can murder her child with impunity. And only the abortionist gets prosecuted. But it was Life at Conception.
Yeah, and it was being covered as though it was going to be a total ban.
Right.
That's the way the media was talking about it.
And so as she signed that bill, she put out this statement about the bill. She said, I assure you that we will continue to follow the rule of law, which if it's coming from a pro-life Republican, that actually means we will continue to disregard the rule of law and obey the rule of the Supreme Court. Yeah. So she says, I assure you that we will continue to follow the rule of law. No matter one's personal view on abortion, we can all recognize that, at least for the short term, this bill may be unenforceable. No matter one's personal view on abortion, we can all recognize that at least for the short term, this bill may be similarly unenforceable. As citizens of this great country, we must always respect the authority of the U.S. Supreme Court, even when we disagree with their decisions. So basically, do all the nonsense you want, Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And we're just going to take it and allow babies to be murdered.
Yeah. Because Biden can make the mandate, and then it can go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can say, listen, this is within his presidential powers, executive powers. He can mandate that there's a vaccine in every state. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then according to if you hold her to her quote, she can't say that's nonsense. She says, no, you must always respect the authority of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So again, just total self-reputation.
such a wide disparity just between the ways that they talk about it, right? I mean, such derision for the tyranny when it comes to mandates and when it comes from Biden, and then such just despicable, like obsequious submission to the Supreme Court on the issue of abortion. Like we must always respect the authority of the Supreme Court. Like it's like you're saying we must always respect Joe Biden when he's forcing us to get vaccines. It's like you would never, of course, you would never say that because that's not how Republicans treat vaccine mandates. But it is how they treat children who are being murdered every day in their states on their watch. Like babies murdered in Alabama are done so with the approval of KIV.
And it should infuriate you and make you sick when you see someone doing this because it just means that they actually have no regard whatsoever for the Constitution. It means that they think the Constitution is a blank document that it can be interpreted any way the Supreme Court says it can, and they can pretend like the sky is purple if they want to, and a person like her has to say, oh, yep, the sky is purple. The Supreme Court said it, and we cannot doubt their credibility on this. Like that's the kind of thing that they're doing when they say that abortion is allowed to happen. When the Constitution says that you cannot murder innocent human beings, the 14th Amendment protects them, they say the exact opposite, and we have to respect that, according to her, which is absurd. It's really stupid.
Yeah. And of course, we got Governor Mike Parsons, Doug Ducey, Henry McMasters. These were governors of states, and in each of these states, there were bills to abolish abortion. There were nullification bills. By nullification bills, we just mean that these bills said, listen, the Supreme Court has made an unjust, unconstitutional ruling, which we are going to nullify. We are not going to obey. We're going to uphold the law of God, higher law, the Constitution of our states, protect preborn babies. And we do this knowingly because Roe v. Wade, case v. Planned Parenthood is nonsense or is evil. So when the textbook nullification language is before these governors, they were completely silent.
And
utterly silent.
To use McMaster's words, he is not willing to fight to the gates of hell to protect preborn children. Right? In Doug Ducey's words, he does not act like the Supreme Court has declared war on unborn children. And again, the rhetoric is so different when it comes to abortion and when it comes to every other issue. I mean, they'll speak like this on other, not just on mandates. I mean, they will pound the state sovereignty drum for all sorts of stuff. Here in Oklahoma, Greg Treat, who's the most anti-state sovereignty guy that there is, like the chief bootlicker, right, in here in Oklahoma, and he is he's willing to put his name on a we are a two-way sanctuary state, and we're not going to tolerate any federal overreach on that issue. So they will on all these other issues. I mean, he actually authored, I forgot about this till just now, popped back into my head. Greg Treat authored a bill to nullify aspects of an Obama EPA program back in 2016. He was the primary author on that bill of nullification.
And back during the founding of our country, there were some disagreements on the nature of how nullification would work. But there's no doubt whatsoever that if any of the founding fathers saw what we've done with abortion, they would absolutely 100% support nullifying it. There's just no way that any of them would think that it would not be justified to nullify it. And, Jefferson wrote in the Kentucky Resolutions that every state has a natural right to nullify. If you know what natural right means, then you should know that that is a very strong statement on what it's a God-given right. It's an innate right. And
it's one of the greatest things about this country. Like there's the grand experiment in the United States of America. We are going to practice nullification. It's founded when 13 colonies disagreed with their king. It's like we're going to like our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, is a nullification abolitionist document. And so, I mean, you're right. I mean, if Jefferson or any of these guys from their grave could be like, look at abortion, they wouldn't, not that these guys were saints, but at that time, abortion was just probably be on the Pell that it would be something legally protected that you could get down the street from where you go to church. But they would go like this. If anything was ever supposed to be around for nullification, it's this. For crying out loud,
Yeah. And I like the natural right part. Let's focus in on that. So a natural right, again, you said it's innate, it cannot be taken away. Now, why would that be the case? Why would you have a natural right to nullify? Well, I think it's because there's always a universal obligation to to disregard an order to do evil, always. Otherwise, there's no justification for the Nuremberg trials, because the guys in Nuremberg were just obeying the orders from their government, the Nazis who were on trial there, and they were just saying, I was just doing what Hitler and Heinrich Himmler and all these guys were telling me to do. But it's like, no, when you're ordered to do something that evil, of course, it's obvious to everyone that the correct response is to say no. Yeah. And in certain instances, it's not simply a natural right, but it's an actual obligation, right, in cases like that. And so when it's that evil, you have the right to say no, you must say no. And this is that evil. Like, all these governors have been given an order by the Supreme Court: you must allow child sacrifice in your state, right? Every bit as evil as the orders that Hitler and all those guys were given to all the lower level Nazis. Yeah. And they have said, yes, we will do whatever you say.
Yeah, and I think that every legislator now, they'll hear Nuremberg trial and they're like, well, there's no government that's going to come in and do that. But I think that they should know there will be a divine Nuremberg trial for you. Yeah, there will be. For governors, for legislators, for Supreme Court justices, for judges on any level. God will judge you harshly for each and every child that died. And their blood is currently crying out for yours. It is yelling out to God, avenge us. And that will happen. You're not going to escape that. Yeah. So I all of you judges and you governors who are saying all these great things when it comes to vaccines, repent. Yeah. See what you're doing. See the bloodshed. Stop and turn away and stop this from happening in our country.
Now, to add one more wrinkle on the natural right thing, this is kind of an interesting that I think about whenever you guys are talking, is that, well, okay, they're recognizing this natural right to do the good, to do the right thing. Like, we have a natural right to do the good thing against a tyrannical government. Yeah. They're recognizing that. Now, the problem is that in the United States of America, and I guess in the Western world, there are teachers and people who believe that there is the Bible, a higher law, and when they get that wrong and they start believing that the Bible says that if the government tells you to do something, like put pinwheels on before you go into a Publix, you just have to do it. That somehow, and it's a weird thing, you think about it, like guys like Todd Friel are teaching that you may have a natural right to nullify, but you got to keep it in check. Because the Bible says in his reading and in his teaching, when the governing authorities tell you to do something, you have to do it. And someone might say, no. Frill wouldn't say that if it was like, if the governing authorities told you can't preach the gospel, or the governing authorities said that you had to murder people or whatever. It was like, no. I actually think that is what we're facing with these Republicans. I think of Kevin Stitt back on the campaign trail when questions of Romans 13 came up and abolition, because Dan Fisher was running as an abolitionist governor. They were quoting Romans 13. Why can't we abolish abortion in Oklahoma? Because Romans 13 says we must obey the government. Yeah. So strangely and awfully, because I think this is a misuse of the Bible, we've got governing authorities, these governors, who when it comes time for them to nullify, and they should nullify, they will use the higher law of submission to government to justify their non-nullification. And, dramatically put on display here. And that would go for quite a number of just regular citizen people just on abortion. I
think the other thing that, this highlights as well is it's kind of when pastors weigh in on stuff like nullification, they'll say, well, we're not going to listen to a mandate that says we can't gather for church. It's all kind of this old Pharisaicalism that has always been around. I'm going to elevate this easy thing, and this is going to be my righteousness. I'm going to do this thing like going to church. And I know people get really sensitive when you criticize MacArthur, but it's just obvious here. MacArthur's not outspoken on things like abolition, and he's outspoken on things like gathering for worship. And it's good to gather for worship. But when it comes to issues of justice, God looks at you gathering on Sunday and your burning of incense and your burning of sacrifices of the Jews, and he says, this is repulsive because of this. Yeah. The fact that you're not doing anything about this, it makes what you're doing on Sunday repulsive and a stench to me and burdensome to me. Like, I don't want it. I want you to establish justice. I want your heart to be clean.
Yep. Isaiah 1, Amos 5. It's a theme throughout the prophets.
Yeah. So for anyone who's like listening to that, and because you've said under the teaching of a John MacArthur or whatever in this area, you might be thinking, oh, well, Sam's out of line. Well, no, it's actually true that God does value us keeping his law and loving neighbors and loving him so much that whenever we don't do that, yet still meet for religious ceremonies or assemblies, which he wants us to do, he doesn't regard it well. He doesn't accept the worship. He doesn't hear the prayers. Yeah. That scripture is abundantly clear on that, and I think that reveals something about God. Even though it's Old Testament passages, that's something about God, and he has not changed.
Yeah, and in a New Testament one too, it came to mind because it's in our pamphlet, and actually it was a thing that you suggested be in the pamphlet. I think Luke 11:42, right? Jesus talking to the Pharisees, and he says, "Woe to you, for you tithe, all these herbs, and you tithe. Yeah, you do all the things you're supposed to do politically. You obey all the commanded ordinances, but you neglect what? You neglect justice. You neglect justice.
The weightier matters of the law.
Yep.
And when you neglect the weightier matters of the law, it does call into question everything else.
Yep.
So, I mean, why, it's like somehow you've made an idol of your religious ceremonies. Because if your religious ceremonies were to me, what does it mean to know me? To do justice, says the Lord.
Yeah.
So, but the Bible, when we bring up Todd Frill and his teaching on it, we definitely don't agree that if the government says, do this iniquitous thing, you have to do it. We don't follow. We've whatever episode that was, however many episodes ago, we've talked about that. But the Bible does have much to say about defying governing authorities, not just unconditional submission, but that there are times, places, and reasons for which you should defy governing authorities, even though those governing authorities have their authority from God. When they abrogate their authority, when they misuse their authority, Christians, the people of God, are instructed to defy them. So some of the standard passages, Exodus 1, Acts 5, Daniel 3. We need to go over them again, shall we?
Sure, yeah, just real briefly. I mean, Exodus 1, you've got Pharaoh commanding the midwives, kill these newborn children. Kill them. And the Hebrew midwives say, no, we're not going to do that, and they help some of the newborn boys escape. And Exodus 1 actually says God blesses them for that defiance. He blesses them.
Yep.
And so, I think it's a clear instance, and it's not quite the exact same as what governors are doing, because it's like they were commanded to actively kill those newborn children, whereas the Republican governors and Democrat governors, but Republicans specifically, have been commanded to allow children to be murdered. And so there's a difference in how heavily that might weigh on one's conscience, but I don't think there's actually a real substantive difference there.
Well, there is a difference in system as well too, because our system is not a dictatorship. It's not a top-down Pharaoh says and you must do it. There's a system of states and governors, and they have a job, and their job is to rule constitutionally. They're supposed to do things according to the Constitution, and this is the federal government, the Supreme Court, saying you shall not do that. You shall not do your job. You shall allow them to be murdered. And that is a matter of you are not allowed to do the right thing.
A normal person, standing outside of an abortion mill in Oklahoma City, watching someone walk in with a baby and thinking, I can stop them. And they ran out to try to interpose and stop a mother and father from going into an abortion mill. The police would be called, and the police would be commanded to, even if that police officer, which a lot of police officers you meet out doing street evangelism will say they agree with you about abortion and stuff, but that police officer would be commanded to protect the right of that mother and father to murder that child. And so it's kind of yes, I've told you to do this injustice. So it's a little different, but it has the same outworking. Of course, the Exodus 1 situation gets repeated in the New Testament in a way that a lot of people overlook, but it's also a governing authority, King Herod, basically commanding the out-of-state magi who've come into tell me where this child is, report back to me where this child is. And it says they just disregarded it, that they didn't tell them. So there's a sort of sense where when an evil authority is going to do evil, and you know they're going to, and they're saying comply, don't comply. That's what those passages teach.
Yeah. The gospel being possible too, God's divine plan for everything, the gospel being possible is a series of massive amounts of firstborn sons being murdered, and the parents of those firstborn sons escaping from that or nullifying that and not allowing it to happen. It happened with Moses. It happened with Jesus. It's been a constant theme where the devil tries to kill all of the sons of that time period whenever there's a significant person that God is using, and the parents of that person don't allow it.
Yeah, and the governing authorities are over the killing. Mm-hmm. Like that's the thing. That's the thing that's the same. Whereas it may not. Pharaoh's saying, "I want all these midwives to kill these babies as they're born," sort of a partial birth abortion type thing. I want you to kill them. And Herod saying, "Hey, I need to find out where this child is," and then him deciding to go. It's governing authorities sitting over the slaughter of innocent image bearers,
commanding it. Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, there's a slight difference today in that our culture it seems willing to just go along with it, because they're killing their children for their own sin or to make their lives better or whatever reasons, all the many different wicked reasons that people have to kill their children. But the governing authorities are protecting that. They're in league with it.
Yeah. And an interesting quote to bring into here to kind of tie things together. I think it was Bonhoeffer who said, "Not to act is to act," right? And so, like Kevin or anyone could say, "Well, no, it's different than like in the Nuremberg trials or in the case of Pharaoh ordering the boys to be murdered, because I'm not the one doing the murder in Oklahoma. Like I'm not murdering any babies in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm just allowing people to murder babies in Oklahoma. But not to act is to act. To allow babies to be murdered is no less bringing blood on your hands as if you were murdering them yourself."
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, we're talking about the most powerful person who has law enforcement at his beck and call, can stop abortion, but doesn't. So it's kind of like, okay, that individual mother, that individual father, that individual grandfather, whoever, there's different people who are sort of the primary cause of this or that abortion, individual abortion. But every abortion in the state of Oklahoma, Governor Stitt shares in. He's the commander-in-chief of Oklahoma. He's the guy that could demand the abolition bill, sign it, and enforce it. He could stand up for abolition in the way that he's standing up against vaccine mandates and rescue these children. But instead of doing that, he's, washing his hands of it. So, yes, it sounds harsh. It sounds mean. Some people might think it's unreasonable, but something that he can do but doesn't do is his sin, and he must own it. And he's proving, along with these other governors, that he could do something. Like he's not actually saying I can't do anything. Yeah. He's saying I could do something, but I just literally am not.
Yeah. And I think a big part of the reason that they're not going to do, like a lot of them don't do something, is because it's difficult and they might lose their power. But the power that they're keeping is kind of impotent. It's like they're not even allowed to enforce the Constitution. They're not allowed to do things that are within their power, and they're neglecting to do it. And they should do it. And so it is interesting that it's like it's preserving this little power that they have, but it gets smaller and smaller and smaller because it's the desire to hold on to it. It's like those monkeys that get their hand caught in the thing, and it eventually kills them. It takes away all their power eventually. I don't know if you guys.
You want me to do a cartoon? You want me to do a cartoon of a monkey getting his hand stuck in something?
Yeah, Kevin Stitt holding on to a coconut or something, holding onto a nut, and trying to get it out, but he won't let go of it, so he gets caught by the hunters.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to draw that, but
important point here that I don't have on the outline here, but I think that is a helpful one to make as we're on this subject. A little bit of a diversion before we get back to the nullification mandate stuff. So this week, Kevin Stitt held his third ceremonial signing of the 9 pro-life bills that they signed here in Oklahoma. It's the third time they've literally. So Kevin Stitt, he actually signed them all once. And then he had 3 more ceremonial signings where everyone gets up on stage and talks about how pro-life they are. And Greg Treat's up there and all these guys are up there. Now for this one, Susan B. Anthony lists. Probably
Yeah.
Probably more influential than National Rights Act. Probably the most influential pro-life lobbying organization was in Oklahoma. Marjorie Dannenfelser, the president of it, was in Oklahoma with Kevin Stitt and Greg Treat talking about how pro-life they all were.
Such a shame.
All these great pro-life victories. And she's actually here to protect James Lankford as well. She was doing some stuff to endorse James Lankford, who endorsed Larry Boggs instead of Warren Hamilton, who's going to abolish abortion. And so anyway, Susan B. Anthony Lewis comes to Oklahoma to campaign for these pro-lifers and talk about how pro-life they are. And again, as we just talked about, Kevin Stitt has blood on his hands.
Yeah.
Babies are murdered on his watch, but they think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, the most pro-life governor. I mean, I think it was Stitt who kind of claimed the title of most pro-life governor.
Yeah.
But Marjorie Dannenfelser is certainly going along with it, if not saying it explicitly.
Yeah, and it sickens me. I mean, it like literally ticks me off, but like kind of in the sort of like awful, sad sense, because I know that what they're doing works.
Yeah.
Like they'll have a ceremonial signing of these 9 bills, have these pro-life people talk about how pro-life they are. And we can't reach all these people to explain to them what a sham it is, to get them to understand why they're doing it. Like, why are they doing it? Well, Texas has got a heartbeat bill and they're in the news and they're looking all like, I mean, that's not going to come to anything. It's all just stupid. But here in neighboring state of Oklahoma, well, like, we need to look good too. Let's look real pro-life. Sir, we've already done a ceremonial signing of those bills. Oh, who cares? Let's do it again. Like,
and again,
the idiot pro-lifers of my state will eat this up. And I'm so proud to be pro-life. By the way, we had the opportunity to abolish abortion and we didn't, which is precisely why the big national pro-life organizations like Susan B. Anthony are coming in here specifically to highlight him, because he is a pro-lifer's pro-lifer. And how is he a pro-lifer's pro-lifer? He doesn't abolish abortion. He uses abortion as a political football to gain votes and admiration. He's prideful as anything can get out, and it's all just a show. He is everything the pro-life movement loves. I'm sure they raise a lot of money. They get a lot of fans.
It's all that pharisaicalism that I was talking about earlier. It's you know, you're setting up 3 ceremonies for yourself just to have everybody in the room just give you a big old pat on the back. Good job, Kevin. But it's like you're doing the same thing. You're giving your money. You're praying these elaborate prayers in public so that you can be seen for it and people will praise you for it. But it's not for the actual purpose of establishing justice.
Oh, and they all know, because the work that we've done and others like us have done, they know while it's happening that they are the people who don't abolish abortion. They are the people who won't nullify for the preborn. They are who we say they are, and they know it deep down inside, which is what's driving them to do these things. It's sick.
And the important point to make, like the point of why I kind of brought up that kind of rabbit trail, was because what enables that? What enables them to get away with something like that, with keeping abortion legal, but having all these massive, these celebratory things to talk about how pro-life they all are? What allows them to get away with that? Well, people who call for incrementalism and people who call for smash mouth incrementalism. Right? They would
Kevin Stitt is a smash mouth incrementalist.
Absolutely.
I will do anything that comes across my desk.
Now, smash mouth incrementalists should not be that way for biblical reasons, and they can go back and watch episode 4 for the biblical arguments. But just even the just practical, like, how do things play out in the political sphere? When you tolerate their compromise, they're going to not do what's biblical and just, and they're going to do all of these iniquitous, compromising things, and then they're going to talk about how amazing they all are for not abolishing abortion, but doing all these compromise things that won't amount to anything. And the smash mouth incrementalist can't object to that. That's that is smash mouth incrementalism.
They will actually say, and we want to do more. That's the reason they're doing less, so they can constantly do more. It's always there for them to do a little bit more, to get more support. I mean, they are using the murder of children for political gain. That they are wicked, and like, I'm glad you kind of go to the smash mouth incrementalists and stuff, because sometimes people think, well, don't fight with the people who are the closest to you. No, they're the furthest away. Like the incrementalist or the straight up regulationist or the straight up pro-abort person may be cold on abortion and we're hot on abortion, and the smash mouth incrementalists are just kind of lukewarm. Like, let's have a ceremony, let's celebrate the good we've done, and let's say we're going to do more good in the future. These people, like, when I think about them, I want to spew them out of my mouth. I don't want them in my mouth. Yeah. But like they're disgusting what they're doing. Yeah. And it is right to say, why do they get away with this? Mm-hmm. They get away with this because the number of folks like us that are willing to call them out and expose them is not large enough.
Yeah. Well, it's like Pharaoh. Pharaoh comes and he offers compromises to Moses. He says, "Well, we'll give you all the men. Just don't take the women and the children." And then he comes back with another compromise: take the women and the children and the men. Just don't take the cattle. And God obviously requires them to sacrifice. And so Moses says, "No, we have to take our cattle too. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to offer right sacrifices to God." Every single time, it's the tyrant offering the compromise. But the smash mouth incrementalists are saying, give us this compromise.
Yeah, take the compromise and then work for more in the future.
And then the abolitionists, when they see the compromise, they say, this is disgusting. This should not happen. Your heartbeat bill, that wasn't a good thing. You're saying, it might save lives. Well, guess what? The end goal here is not just to save lives, it's to establish justice. Yeah. And you just put into law something unjust and evil, something that God hates.
That was a substitute.
Your bill.
It was a substitute. You could have done this and you did this instead.
Yep.
And then you're going to say you're going to do more in the future. Well, if you're going to do more in the future, why didn't you do it now? Yeah. You wretched, wicked person. And so that does need to be called out for the sin that it is. Yeah. We do need to expose it. We do need to point out the fact that, the day after the ceremonial signing of these bills, they were murdering children in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Like, Oklahoma is murdering lots of Texan babies
while they were signing it. After every single one of their 3 ceremonies that they set up, babies were being murdered during the signing of each of those bills.
And come November 1st, they'll still be being butchered.
Yeah.
Yep. And because of what Kevin Stitt says when he's exposing himself and what he really believes on nullification, we'll just see what the courts do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm signing these because I'm proud of them, but we'll just see what the courts do. Mm-hmm. This is why we have abortion still. This is how you can have abortion in a country where you have 100 million people that are opposed to it. Why? Mm-hmm. Because 100 million people that are opposed to abortion are satisfied with freaking smash mouth incrementalism. It's the most, I know that like people who hold that view say they love the law of God and they love the word of God. So I don't want to caricature them and say people who hate the law of God love smash mouth incrementalism. But like people who love the law of God and love the word of God should be siding with us on this, saying no to compromise, stand up for justice, not continuing to like fuel this charade, this Holocaust.
Unless you think we're operating outside
we always
Romans
go off on all this stuff.
13 or something like that. This is that the apostles who wrote, who were inspired by God to write Romans 13, who we agree with entirely. We agree with Romans 13. Acts 5, they said it is better to obey God rather than men. And just to remember the context here, pretty much every single one of the apostles was murdered for violating some governmental order. And so what we're talking about is not outside of biblical Christianity. It is the tradition of the church. It's the earliest tradition we have of the church, of people getting literally killed for doing a hard biblical thing. Yeah. And that was preaching the gospel despite the fact that they were telling them not to, and not kissing the ring of Caesar, which is what we're being asked to do every single day here in Oklahoma, is kiss the ring of Caesar whenever the Supreme Court says, kiss the ring.
Yeah. But the time has come when we've accumulated teachers who tickle our ears and tell us mythical things like you must always, always obey the government, especially when they tell you that you cannot love your preborn neighbors and fellow image bearers as yourself.
It's what every false religion does too. It's taking away from God attributes distinct to God. It's saying and giving it to someone else, giving it to man. It's like I say whether you're some false prophet or something like that. I say this is what God's saying, and you're supposed to listen to that above Scripture. It's the same thing with this. You're supposed to listen to the Supreme Court above anything else. Like, it is the highest authority. Yeah. It's the constant scheme of, it's the nature of man. We want to take from God what is God's, and that goes back to the Garden of Eden. It's like the devil said, you're going to be like God if you eat this fruit. And that's what we've always wanted, and that was the original sin, and so they went with it.
Yep.
And I think that this is it's doing the same thing. It's saying of the Supreme Court, they have all authority on heaven and on earth, when that's Christ's and no one else's.
And we know that that's their real position, because that's their position when it comes to protecting innocent life in their states. But to get back to the point of this episode, they say that's not their position when it comes to protecting medical choice for vaccines. That the governors will stand up for your choice not to be vaccinated, which I would like to make public that I am, in favor of choosing.
Right.
But I don't think people should run out and do this. And definitely we oppose the mandates, but golly, so be consistent.
But I guess back on the track here real quick. So we've got defying tyrants is a natural right. Defying tyrants, there are scriptural justifications, explicit scriptural examples of this. Now let's go to abortion specifically. So do we have, because we're not saying you can defy tyrants all the time. You can just defy whatever you want willy-nilly, but we're saying that there are biblical justifications for doing so when evil things are commanded. And so abortion, I think everyone watching this, I don't think we're talking to anyone who wouldn't already agree, abortion is murder, right? Obviously it's evil. Child sacrifice is one of the most evil things that can be commanded.
Yeah. Let's go one further. Even people who say they don't agree, y'all know it's murder too.
They know.
You're just suppressing the truth and unrighteousness.
Oh, yeah. Well, where to go? Sam's going to put abortion's murder and everybody knows it right here.
Oh,
yeah. There it is.
There it is. Or Russell will.
Yeah. Good quadfold. We sold out, but they'll be back in the store soon.
Yep. We'll be selling the abortion's murder and everyone knows it quadfold soon. But yeah, it's evil. It's one of the most, child sacrifice is one of the most evil things that the mind of man has ever come up with. And in the Old Testament, it says never entered the mind of God. Now, what that exactly means, there's probably some different interpretations there. But again, one of the most wicked things that man's mind has ever come up with.
Yeah, it's beyond the pale.
Right. Yeah. And so not only is it murder and it's evil and everyone knows it, so we got justification there, it's unconstitutional and everyone knows it. And when I say everyone, I mean Democrats, I mean the Supreme Court, the 7 justices who ruled in the majority in Roe v. Wade, they all know it. So let's go to a few quotes here. Let's start with my favorite one. My favorite one's the one at the bottom here. So this really gets to the point of everybody knows it. So this is the former dean of Stanford Law, John Hart Eli. And he is a liberal who, as a matter of public policy, supports abortion. But constitutionally, here's what he says. Roe v. Wade is not constitutional law and gives almost no sense of an obligation to try to be. He's saying they're not even trying that hard to make it look like they're acting legitimately.
Yeah.
They're just openly saying we're inventing a right to murder your children.
Yeah.
And a leftist is admitting that.
Yeah, we found it in the penumbras of the 14th Amendment. Yeah. It's like they've been admitting from the very beginning. Yeah. This is not literally in there. It's not even in there, kinda. It's in the shadows of what's there.
Yeah.
They might as well have just said, the people of the United States of America in their rebellion against God want child sacrifice, so we're going to allow it.
Yeah.
And not even make the pretense that it's constitutional.
Yeah. And they did put up a little bit of a pretense, but as Eli says, not that much of a pretense. There wasn't even that much pretense of trying to make it look legit. Like they knew what they were doing was tyrannical.
And everyone
knows it.
And now as different states are doing different things and you've got a radical leftist pro-abort governing authority in the White House, they're saying things like, we need to make this constitutional.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but the pro-lifers have been saying it's constitutional all along. Wait, it's not constitutional? It's like Biden's like, we need to make this constitutional. Or Kamala Harris, it's like, oh. Yeah, they weren't even ever saying it was constitutional. They just said the Supreme Court said states can't do this. Mm-hmm. So, that's a fantastic quote. And again, that he is a pro-abortion guy.
Yep. And another one. So Edward Lazarus was a clerk of Harry Blackmun. Now, Harry Blackmun was the Supreme Court justice who wrote the Roe v. Wade decision. And so Edward Lazarus was a clerk of Blackman's, and he said he loved Blackman like a grandfather, a guy who loves Blackman. But again, everyone knows it was wrong. He says, as a matter of constitutional interpretation, even most liberal jurisprudence, if you administer truth serum, will tell you Roe is basically indefensible. Again, they know it. They'll put up like a little bit of a legal political pretense, but they know abortion's murder. They know abortion's unconstitutional.
Yeah, because
everyone knows it.
We're not going down this tract, but it's kind of like every embryologist, every fetal every textbook on fetal development. They all basically say human life begins at conception. There's a very neat, unique human individual at the moment of fertilization, and abortion is definitely ending that unique human's life. Like everyone knows that in the scientific realm.
And everyone who's graduated from at least 6th grade is going to know that all the scientists and embryologists believe that.
Yeah. And so you just say, we all know that, but that's not what it's about. We're doing this for other reasons.
Yeah. And what's interesting is the way that pro-lifers will treat justices when they get in. They'll be all fangirl for them and stuff like that. And it's like, these guys are worse than Hitler until they do the right thing, to me. Like when they get in there, if they're confirmed, they're not good people. They're bad people. Like Blackman here, he is a evil man.
On par with Hitler.
He should be regarded as Stalin.
And everyone's like, ooh, you can't compare him to Hitler. Well, I mean, he's overseen more deaths than Hitler.
Sometimes you literally can. Like it's not always legitimate, but sometimes it is.
Yeah. And so I think
he's
okay.
worse than him. He's far worse.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of people that have died because of him is incredible. It's
if you're looking at like people in positions of authority making statements about a people group that leads to that people group's termination, Blackman's statements and rulings have engendered more deaths than Hitler.
Yeah.
Now, Blackman's not saying go out there and kill all the unborn babies. There's a difference there. But if you just want to like look down at it, who has in their position of a government authority overseen or whatever a larger Holocaust?
Yeah.
The American abortion Holocaust is dwarfs the Nazi genocide of the Jews.
Yeah.
Just
if
to agree
there are
with you,
different
Sam.
levels of hell, I think that Blackman's below Hitler for sure.
Yeah,
If
but
he
there
didn't
aren't
repent.
different levels of hell. I don't think. I don't know.
Could be.
Could be. The Bible is silent on this.
Yeah.
Someone check the 95 Theses for whether there's different levels of hell and how much it costs.
some people are weeping and some people are gnashing their teeth. So I wonder what the difference is there. There's something different.
Next episode of the Liberator podcast. I'm just kidding. And then after that, how many angels can dance upon the head of a pin? And then the last quote that you were going to do was Lawrence Tribe's behind its own verbal smoke screen, the substantive judgment on which it rests is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Again, Lawrence Tribe, legal scholar.
Who's on the far, far, far left.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like it that they all basically do admit, no, we have abortion because we want abortion.
Yeah.
Like we will make these arguments like during political seasons and so on and so forth, but basically it's like in Hillary Clinton basically, they're persons.
Yeah.
They're not persons with the right to live.
There's no point to even the pretense anymore because they make the argument that the Constitution is a living document. And so if that's the case, then it doesn't really matter whether or not it's in there at all. You can just do whatever you want.
And it comes down to what people really want. And I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves. I remind myself of this all the time whenever I look at like why aren't we gaining traction? Sometimes you're like, why is it that Lyft or Uber are going to send me like a thing saying that we're going to help people get free abortion rides from Texas to Oklahoma? Like how is that possible? Well, it's because 1 in 4 mothers murder their children. The guilt is just everywhere. Like everybody's done this. So like, of course they're going to say it's good. That's what you do. You do evil and you call your evil good so that you can feel good about it. And in America, we have to call our evil constitutional so we can feel like it was legal, because whatever's constitutional must be right. So that's what's going on here.
Well,
and
it plays to a lot of, I think, the even idolatry of Republicans, because it's like if abortion was in the Constitution, I'd rip up the Constitution and burn it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be the case for a lot of Republicans. I think that
that just made some Republican bristle. Like someone was watching this who actually agrees with a lot of everything that we say, but when you say something like that, they go, and you're just like, dude, like if the Constitution was like, clause 3, you're allowed to murder your children in the womb. You wouldn't burn that thing? Come on. What's wrong with you? Yeah. Or amend it. But it is a weird thing that just mentioning that would cause some people pause.
Yeah. Just back to the pretense point real quick. I want to do 2 examples from our Abortion's Murder and Everyone Knows It quadfold of how the pro-abortion side has dropped all pretense. Like the mask has slipped all the way off. They're not even pretending that they're not murderous serial killers anymore. They're fully admitting it.
At least the more intellectual wing of them. Like the every man on the street type person's going to be like, oh, it's blobbish cells, dumb stuff like that.
Yeah. But the people who actually have to think about this, how to make the case philosophically, morally, politically, they're completely admitting it. So Sophie Lewis is a pro-abortion author, and she wrote a book that was pretty popular. And in one of the interviews promoting her book, she said abortion is a form of killing that we need to be able to defend. It is killing, and we need to not pretend it's not something that it obviously is and everyone knows it is. Yeah. Let's fully acknowledge what it is and defend it as that, and that's the most powerful way that we can defend abortion rights.
And the way she says that we need to be able to defend, like she knows, in a scientifically literate, intelligent, educated culture, we're gonna have to be able to just say that yes, that's a human being in the womb, and yes, you have the right to murder them.
Yeah,
that's what they need to be able to defend.
Yeah.
Now, I think for the first 20 years of the fight, they decided, let's just try to win this by misinformation.
Yeah.
Let's just, make people think, blob of cells, not really a human. Like it doesn't become it was like a weird thing. Like humans don't become humans until some specific point. Like that didn't make sense even all the way back to the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
They knew that wasn't true in the Dark Ages. The medieval period wasn't really Dark Ages, but like that they're basically saying, okay, we've made man on the street people, think that it's not really killing for a long time, but there's just too many blasted folks that have gone to college, and there's this thing called YouTube, and like you can go look at ultrasounds, and there's even like video footage of fertilization events, and we might as well just come out with it. Yeah, it's killing, and we defend it. It's permissible killing.
Well, people are always,
killing, etc.
Again, something in our natures, people are always willing to believe a lie, just because it's convenient. That's Romans 1. It's like they deny God, and they substituted the truth for a lie because they were evil. They wanted evil. And so anyone who's killing their baby in order to not feel bad, or sleeping with their girlfriend or something like that, is just going to say, oh, it's not killing. Oh, God doesn't exist, so it doesn't matter if I sleep with my girlfriend. Those kinds of convenient lies are just there because it makes you feel better about the evil that you do.
Yep. Which is why we always do bring it back to the gospel. It is a gospel issue, because at the back of all of this is just people suppressing the truth and unrighteousness to do evil, and their hearts are evil because their hearts are not regenerated, and they're not following Christ. They don't know him. They don't love his law. Yeah. But that law is still written on their hearts, and they deny it, and we remind them of it.
Yep.
So, but I'm glad you keep on advertising a quadfold that you can't buy this right now in our store, but pick it up.
Yeah, we'll be back in stock of those hopefully in the next couple of days here.
Yeah, visit our store in 7 days.
Yep. But just to kind of put a bow back on all of this.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
These Republican governors, they know abortion's murder. The Democrat governors know abortion's murder. The Supreme Court knows it. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they all know it. Merrick Garland, everyone knows abortion's murder. Half of the political scene kind of maintains like a kind of a pretense of it not being murder. And then the other half says it is murder, but they don't act like it. Yeah. And it's time for them, specifically Republican governors and state legislators, to act like it.
Yeah.
You put on this big show about acting like things are really important and state sovereignty is going to be, enforced in defiance of tyranny, and you put on this big show for all these things, but you won't do it for your preborn neighbors who are murdered in your states, and that blood is on your hands. It's on your hands. And it doesn't have to be. You
Yeah.
can come to Christ and you can repent, and every sin can be washed away. But you got to repent.
Yeah.
The blood is on your hands.
Yeah, and we will certainly get behind you, and lots of folks will get behind you. I think that we're dying. I think that right now, a lot of these governors are, showing their nullification, states' rights rhetoric stuff, and because they know that people want to see that right now. People want to see governors stand up to what they believe is a, tyrannical federal government. And so, we're looking to see some heroic, state sovereignty asserting governors. We hope you do it for the against the mandates. We do. I mean, I'm really, going to be surprised if you do that, because I don't know why you would do it for this and not for that. But maybe your hearts are just really cold to the preborn and you're willing to nullify for against the jab. But I hope you do both. And right now, I mean, even this, I'm going to appeal to their political side and their legacy in the history. For governors, say Governor Kevin Stitt or Greg Abbott or anyone like that, if you want to go down in history as someone who stood up and did the absolute right thing at the absolute right time, right now, pass a bill of abolition or assert abolition in your state, stand up to the federal government, and see what Joe Biden and the Supreme Court does. Mm-hmm. Right now is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Stop piling up all of these statements that are just going to make you look stupid in the future.
Yeah.
And you are a hypocrite, and you can kind of say, no, free the states, I'm not a hypocrite. And in the event that you do that, we're going to be right behind you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you do something else?
Oh, no, I was just going to say a little bit of a shorter episode this week, but we got some exciting things for you next week as well. New abolitionist candidate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you guys will get to know him really well. A really awesome brother who's stepping up here in the state of Oklahoma in what we think is a very winnable race. And so we'll be able to get him hopefully in the Oklahoma State Senate. And so we're excited for all of you to get to know him and hopefully support him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we are always focused on Oklahoma, because that's where we live. But we really want people who watch this show outside of Oklahoma to start sort of emulating. Yep. So be thinking and watching these shows. And this brother, we're not saying his name, right? We're not saying it on the show.
We'll kind of leave it mysterious. Some people will probably already know.
Yeah, some people know who we're talking about. But this is like an abolitionist candidate.
Yeah.
Who's totally legit
and has been doing the work for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is running because he knows that we need an abolitionist candidate.
Yeah.
Yep.
And before we go, we have a monthly giveaway that we do. If you're part of our support team, if you give $25 a month or more, you get entered into a art giveaway. It's a drawing, and you will have a chance to win this piece of art that Russell has hand drawn, pen and ink.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is the one. There may be a better version of this one. I sometimes draw things over and over and over again, and someone said that when they look at this, all they see is butt terror. so I was like, man, I don't want to send that to someone's house or whatever. But yeah, I love this verse. Justice brings joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. Proverbs 21:15. 21:15. So there's an error on this or whatever. So probably going to be giving a version of this. But yeah, I'm able to draw. James is able to write. Sam is able to edit videos, and we're able to do a lot of the things that we're doing because people do support us financially. Mm-hmm. We are not like pro-life organizations where we're asking you to, support us. Every dollar you give us saves a baby or anything like that. The money that you give us, we use to try to further the ideas that we care about, teaching people to think biblically about abortion, about how to fight and remove evils, shifting the paradigm from pro-life to abolition. I think it comes up on this show. It came up today, how do we deal with things like Kevin Stitt and the Oklahoma government doing multiple ceremonies to celebrate their pro-life incrementalist regulatory schemes while babies are being murdered so that people think that things are doing, how do we get to more people? Well, we can get to more people if we do have more money. And that's just kind of the fact of it. So we hate to ask for it all the time, but we do need money. And we've got some big things that we're doing coming up towards the will we be entering a new legislative session, and we have a large mailing list, lots of people that we need to meet to try to send pamphlets to, and so on and so forth. And so we are in need of building our war chest.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
we're replacing the pro-life movement here, and we don't say this a whole lot, but Russell especially doesn't say this kind of thing. But one of the first abolition bills that has ever gotten introduced, the first abolition bill that was ever introduced was in 2016, and it was Russell talking to Joseph Silk and convincing him to get that bill in. And so if we are the organization that replaces right to life, and we had anywhere near the budget that they did, the effectiveness of it has already been proven. We need help to do this. And so think of it as replacing those lobbying organizations, and they make a lot of money. They bring in a lot of money because they need to send out a lot of material. They need to pay for a lot of advertising. And if we could do that, we really, really could make a gigantic impact, and we already have.
We're not doing this for the money, but we are doing this for the reason that we're doing it, and your support is helping us to do that. Another way that you can support us, not just support us financially, but support the work in general, is that we really encourage people to be getting things like quad folds, leaving them around, handing them out to people, wearing the shirts, getting into conversations, doing sign street work. We're going to be trying to increasingly encourage that and make more and more materials so that people can do street work, because it's not just about passing a bill, it's about passing a sentiment which is against the worldview that keeps abortion legal. And so just keep helping us do that.
So you can go to store.freethestates.org to pick up Quadfold soon, to pick up that t-shirt right now, or other pamphlets and drop cards and all sorts of other stuff at the store. So store.freethestates.org, and then you can go to freethestates.org/donate to become a monthly supporter, get your name in the bowl, win a piece of art, hopefully, one of these days.
And that has been episode 57 of the Liberator podcast, where we aim to be as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. We'll see you next week.